On February 23, 1995, a 28-year-old man boards a flight out of Singapore, leaving behind a note, a wife beside him, and a debt that's about to end a 233-year-old bank. Nobody stops him. Nobody even looks twice. Because in 3 days, the bank that survived Napoleon, financed the Louisiana Purchase, and banked the Queen of England will not exist anymore. And almost nobody in London knows it yet. To understand how one man erased 2 centuries of trust before anyone thought to ask a simple question, you have to go back to where it started. Barings Bank opened its doors in 1762. It helped finance the Napoleonic Wars. It helped fund the Louisiana Purchase. Queen Elizabeth II herself banked there, which is why people in London simply called it the Queen's Bank. Generations of the Baring family sat at the top of it, quietly moving money across continents, while empires rose and fell around them. By the 1990s, Barings wasn't just old, it was untouchable. The kind of institution nobody imagined could actually fail. Its own chairman, Peter Baring, would later say he believed the bank's Asian trading strategy was, in his words, extremely lucrative and virtually risk-free. Nick Leeson didn't come from that world. He grew up in Watford, England. No finance degree, no old family name, just sharp instincts with numbers and enough hustle to get hired by Barings in 1989. He climbed fast, clerk to settlements clerk to trader. In 1992, the bank handed him something extraordinary for someone his age, control of its new derivatives desk in Singapore. Not everyone was comfortable with that decision. James Bax, the executive who ran Barings operations across Asia, warned London directly that giving one office this much unchecked control could damage the bank financially. He said it before a single dollar went missing. Nobody above him acted on it. Why would they? The desk hadn't lost anything yet. Here's the detail that made everything else possible, and it's almost too simple to believe. Leeson wasn't just placing the trades, he was also in charge of checking them. The back office job that exists specifically to catch a trader's mistakes, or worse. Normally, 2 separate people hold those 2 jobs, so one can catch what the other misses. In Singapore, Barings let one person do both. What happens when the person placing the bets is also the only one checking whether the bets are real? At first, barely anything. A junior trader on Leeson's team made a small, ordinary error, the kind that costs a company a few $1,000s and gets logged, fixed, forgotten. Leeson didn't log it. He moved it into an account with an oddly memorable number, 88888. On paper, that account wasn't supposed to exist at all. In reality, it became the place where every future mistake would go to disappear. Except mistakes don't stay small once you start hiding them. To make the number in that account shrink, Leeson kept trading, betting on where Japan's Nikkei 225 stock index would move next. Win the bet and the hole closes quietly before anyone in London ever sees it. Lose it, and the hole gets bigger. Which meant betting again, larger, to try to close it before the next set of books got checked. For nearly 2 years, it seemed to work. In 1993, Leeson's Singapore desk reported a profit of £10 million. That was roughly 10% of Barings' entire earnings for the year from one young trader in one overseas office. London didn't ask how. London asked for more. That's the piece of this story people underestimate. The moment somebody starts making impossible money, the instinct should be suspicion. At Barings, it was the opposite. Leeson became a star. Management sent more capital his way. Bonuses got bigger. Executives in London who had never met him started attaching their own reputations to his numbers. Nobody questioned a winning streak that, on paper, looked too clean to be real, because nobody wanted to be the one who stopped it. An internal audit in 1994 actually caught the structural problem. One person controlling both the trading and the checking, the exact setup that lets a number be whatever the person reporting it wants it to be. The audit went into a file. A recommendation was written. Nobody acted on it before it mattered. Here's the open question worth sitting with. If the warning already existed in writing a full year before the collapse, what does it actually take for an organization to listen to itself? So how does a bank not notice hundreds of millions of pounds quietly vanishing inside its own walls? By January of 1995, the number hidden inside account 88888 had grown into the hundreds of millions. Leeson wasn't managing one small mistake anymore. He was carrying one of the largest exposed derivatives positions on the planet, essentially betting that the Japanese market would stay calm and predictable through the winter. It did not stay calm. On January 17, 1995, a devastating earthquake struck the city of Kobe, Japan, killing thousands of people. It was first and foremost a human tragedy, but financial markets don't pause for that. They reacted instantly. The Nikkei 2025 collapsed. Every point it fell turned Leeson's hidden losses into a deeper hole, faster than he could dig out of it. So, he did what people chasing an unpayable debt often do. He doubled the size of his bets, hoping a rebound would erase everything before the next audit, before the next phone call from London, before anyone finally looked too closely. Day after day, he kept the number moving on paper so it would never sit still long enough for anyone to read it clearly. Nobody looked closely enough, not yet. By late February, the losses had grown too large to hide inside any account, real or fictional. Barings needed emergency funding just to cover trades already on the books, far more money than the bank actually had sitting in reserve. When headquarters in London finally saw the real number, it read 827 million pounds. Translated into American dollars at the time, that's roughly 1.4 billion. More than twice the entire trading capital the bank held. One employee, one hidden account. 233 years of history, suddenly worth less than the whole inside it. Leeson didn't stay to explain. On February 23rd, he and his wife left Singapore for Malaysia, then Brunei, then Thailand, moving fast, staying just ahead of a collapse the public didn't even know about yet. On February 26, 1995, Barings Bank collapsed, Britain's oldest merchant bank, banker to the Queen, financier of empires, declared insolvent over a single weekend. Traders on the Singapore exchange floor, the same floor Leeson had walked for years, reportedly cheered and jeered when news of it broke, a mix of shock and vindication for a system that had quietly warned about him and been ignored. Days later, the Dutch bank ING bought what remained of Barings. Not for £1 million, not for 100,000, for £1, plus every debt that came attached to it. So where does a man go after he's just erased 233 years of trust and he's still running? Not far enough. Leeson and his wife moved through Kuala Lumpur, then a small state on the island of Borneo, staying ahead of a manhunt that was now spreading across Asia. On March 1st, they boarded a long, multi-stop flight route toward Europe, chasing a connection that would eventually put them back on British soil. It almost worked. On March 2nd, 1995, that connecting flight landed in Frankfurt, Germany, and German police were waiting at the gate. Frankfurt's chief prosecutor at the time, Heinz Hermann Eckart, would later tell reporters that an international warrant accused Leeson of falsifying documents and mishandling enormous sums of money. Leeson had made it more than halfway around the world. It wasn't enough. He spent the next 9 months in a German jail cell while lawyers on 2 continents argued over where he'd actually stand trial. Singapore won that argument. On November 20th, 1995, he was handed over. On December 2nd, 1995, inside a Singapore courtroom, Judge Richard Magnus sentenced Nick Leeson to 6.5 years in prison on 2 charges of cheating. The judge didn't mince words. He called it a betrayal that had nearly destroyed an institution over 2 centuries old. Months before that sentencing, in July 1995, the Bank of England's own Board of Banking Supervision published its full investigation into what had happened. Its conclusion was almost embarrassing in its simplicity. Nobody had separated the job of making trades from the job of checking them. A first-year accounting student would have flagged it in an afternoon. And beyond the paperwork, nobody at Barings ever asked the one question that actually mattered. Not how much is he making, but how exactly is he making it? That question is the real mechanism sitting underneath this entire story, and it didn't stay behind on a trading floor in Singapore in 1995. The collapse changed more than one man's life. Singapore, worried about its reputation as a global financial hub, rewrote its Futures Trading Act so that regulators would have real power to monitor traders the way nobody had monitored Leeson. Barings' 3,000 employees found out their storied employer belonged to a Dutch bank for the price of a cup of coffee, and the phrase rogue trader entered the financial vocabulary for good, attached forever to a 28-year-old who once seemed like the smartest person in the room. Think about it for a second. When was the last time you questioned a number just because it looked too good? A friend's investment that somehow beats everyone else's every single year. A coworker whose numbers always land suspiciously perfect. Someone in your life whose success story never quite survives a closer look. Most people do exactly what Barings did. They let the results speak for someone's character, instead of asking who, if anyone, is actually checking those results. Nick Leeson didn't need a weapon. He didn't need to break into a vault or forge his way past a security guard. He didn't even need to be particularly brilliant. He needed one unquestioned job title and a room full of people too impressed by the profits to ever ask where they were really coming from. That's it. That's the entire method. Nobody stopped him at that airport in Malaysia, because by then, it was already far too late to matter. The real moment nobody stopped him happened 2 years and one unaudited account earlier. Inside a bank that had survived Napoleon, survived 2 world wars, and never once saw its own employee coming. He wasn't the one who lost the most either. Years later, on a trading floor in Paris, another man would sit at a single desk and make Leeson's £800 million look almost small by comparison, without a hidden earthquake to blame, and without anyone catching him for months.